Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, 10 Ways to Improve Engagement Without Creating More Content. My name is Taylor Freitas, and I'm on the marketing team here at Bright Talk. And today I am delighted to be joined by Sam Patterson, who is the marketing manager at PSTL. And in today's session, Sam and I are going to share with you 10 different ways you can take your existing content and reshape and repurpose it to drive higher engagement. So I will hand the mic off to Sam in just a second here, but please bear with me for a few minutes while I cover just a few quick housekeeping items about this presentation and about the Bright Talk platform. So first off, today's webinar will be available on demand. You can access that after we wrap up live here through the same Bright Talk platform URL you're on right now. And you can feel free to share that link directly or by using the social sharing icons near your player. And just to let you know, we've also added some attachments. Those are available through the Attachments tab beneath your screen. In there, you can find today's deck and some other related content, including a recent blog post and an ebook from PFL. And if you have a question during the presentation today, you can ask that at any time. You can do that in one of two ways, either through the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of the player or by tweeting us at Bright Talk. And we will be answering those questions in a dedicated Q&A at the end of the session. But if we don't get to your question during the webinar today, we will absolutely be sure to follow up with you afterwards. So Sam and I are going to be doing quite a bit of back and forth tag teaming these tactics today. We're each going to share a couple tactics at a time and then hand it off to each other. So I think it'll be quite fun and interactive. But first things first, I'm going to hand it off to Sam to introduce herself and our topic and share a little bit about why we decided to talk about content engagement today. So Sam, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Taylor. So as you know, today we're going to talk about engagement, and this is something that PSTL is really passionate about, and especially about multi-channel engagement. We started 20 years ago as an e-commerce print shop, and today our solutions help marketers and sales reps easily send direct mail through their existing marketing automation and CRM platforms. And that helps them make human connections and drive response rates in a scalable and trackable way. So enough about us. So today everybody's doing content marketing. 94% of small businesses, 93% of B2Bs, and even 77% of B2Cs are using content marketing. So basically that's everybody. There's a problem though, just because everybody is doing content marketing doesn't mean that they're winning at content marketing. You can see here on the screen that according to the Content Marketing Institute, only 9% of B2B marketers consider their content marketing efforts to be very effective. And that's very sad to me as a content marketer myself. So this could be for several reasons. Maybe their content marketing isn't effective because it's not providing value to the viewer. Maybe it's not relevant to the viewer. But often marketers have great content. We just struggle to get eyeballs on it. So that kind of leads us into a key question on how much time and effort do you spend promoting your content? So we're going to go into a quick poll here to just see how everybody stacks up. So take a minute to answer the poll question on the sidebar there, and we will relay kind of some of those answers coming in to see what that looks like. So the main question is, when you create content, how long do you spend on average creating it, and how much time do you spend promoting it?
So we've got 80-20, 60-40, 50-50, 40-60, and 20-80. And it looks like, oh, we're getting a whole mix of answers right now, but it looks like it's pretty equally spread with some heavier on 80-20 and 20-80, interestingly.
Great, that's good to see. So 80 is the time you're creating it, 20 is the time that you're promoting it, if you chose A as your answer.
We'll leave this open for just a few more seconds here to get some last votes, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the results. So it looks like, yeah, like we were just sharing 80-20 came out first with 44% of the votes.
Okay, that's kind of what I was expecting. So it looks like a lot of marketers and a lot of you are still spending a lot of time on creating your content and not as much time on promoting that content. So like the results show, a lot of people believe that if they create content, readers will just come flocking to their site and they'll share their content, they'll probably buy something, and then, hey, presto, that content's been a success. But the reality is actually that is absolutely false. So nothing in life, other than this baseball field in the middle of a cornfield, runs by the rule, if you build it, they will come. Nothing. And especially not your content. But so often as marketers, as we can see from the results of that poll, it's really easy to get into the pattern of producing awesome content and then just rushing off to create that next awesome piece of content. But it's really not about how much content you create, but how good you are at getting your content into the hands of people. So many leaders in content marketing suggest that marketers take an 80-20 approach. And that's not the 80-20 that many of you responded in the poll. It's the actual opposite. So 20% of your time should be spent on creating content, and 80% of your time should be spent on promoting that content. And a key element of that 80-20 rule is that you don't need to just keep churning content out just for the sake of churning content out. It's really about cutting back on the amount of time you spend on creating content, investing more time and effort into producing really good quality content, and then investing more time and effort into promoting that content. So now we're going to go into, as we mentioned, some 10 underutilized tactics that you can use to amp up your own promotional prowess, as I like to say, and really broaden that content exposure for your business.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick things off here by talking about one of my favorite topics, which is video. So this first tactic that I'm going to talk about involves taking a core piece of static content, like a report you've done, or a white paper you've published, or a case study you've written, and really bringing that to life with a short teaser video, which will probably hit somewhere around the 2 to 3 minute mark. So unfortunately, the disappointing fact about many white papers is that no matter how much time we dedicate putting into them, they are often not read. I think many times they're perceived as kind of cumbersome, fact-heavy documents, which are most useful for scanning through and maybe picking out 1 to 2 key takeaway statistics, which breaks my heart as a writer, but unfortunately that is what we see very often. And in a lot of ways, video is the exact opposite of that. Especially with these short teaser videos that we're going to talk about, you're creating something quick and punchy and something that's going to grab your audience's attention. So these teaser videos are short videos that cover the key details from your core piece of content, which is your white paper or your report. And the goal is to pique your audience's interest and encourage them to download that longer piece of content. These videos are super easily digestible for your viewers, and they are simple to create if you've got the right team in place. So I've highlighted a couple examples here on the BrightTalk platform. These are from HP on the left and Palo Alto Networks on the right, both uploaded to BrightTalk, as I said. And both of them are short, less than 3 minutes, I think, and they each hit on the highlights of their respective white papers, and they both include links, importantly, calls to action to download the complete PDFs in the attachment section. So uploading these videos on video platforms like BrightTalk or YouTube or Vimeo is really effective for users of those platforms who are searching out video content related to your topic. But I think another place where these videos really shine is through social promotion. And that's because they're so short, you can easily upload them natively to sites like Facebook or Twitter to really grab your audience's attention and push them to your landing page to download the longer white paper. But if you're uploading them to these social sites, it's important to keep in mind the maximum allowed video length on each platform, which I've highlighted above here. On Facebook, you don't really have to worry about that because it's 120 minutes, which is kind of crazy, but interesting. On Instagram, you've got 60 seconds for these videos, and on Twitter, you've got 140 seconds, which is a nice little nod to their 140 character tweet length, which is funny. And the other type of video I want to highlight here is what we call a webinar spotlight. So very similar to a teaser video, but rather than cutting snippets from your white paper, it takes audio excerpts from a recorded webinar you've done and pairs them with a visual component. So here I have an example from a webinar we did on Bright Talk with Justin Gray, who many of you probably know, the CEO and founder of LeadMD. And our amazing video team at Bright Talk Studios was able to quickly cut a few highlights from his recorded audio, and they added a simple text visual there. Pretty simple to create, but very effective in the same way teaser videos are, because they take pieces from your recorded webinar. They're mainly useful in driving audience to your on-demand webinars. And we kind of consider these little mini visual podcasts, and they can be used in the same social distribution ways as the teaser videos, which I really like these. And staying on the theme of webinars, I want to move into our next tactic, which I think is one of the most criminally underrated webinar features, and that is attachments. So as you may have heard me mention in the intro to this webinar, we have included some attachments today, and that includes blog posts, the presentation deck, links to our websites, all that good stuff. And since Bright Talk is a webinar platform, we've really been able to understand what works as far as webinar programs go. We've managed, thousands of live events, surveyed our audience, surveyed our speakers, and we've been able to identify what attendees want and how presenters can increase engagement with their content. And attachments are, fortunately, one of those things that are mutually beneficial for both our audience members and our webinar presenters. But unfortunately, we find that presenters often overlook webinar attachments. So we recently conducted a user survey with Frost & Sullivan, and we found that a full 80% of B2B professionals who are watching content on Bright Talk, webinar content, want to have access to your presentation deck, whether that's before, during, or after the actual presentation. And I'm not sure about all of you listening, but personally I can say that I definitely fall into this 80%. There are times more often than not when I want to go back to a webinar I've already watched, when I want to quickly skim the deck for that one stat that I wanted to remember or that one slide that really stuck out to me. So on this slide I've included an example of an attachment mix. You can also click into our attachments on the webinar today to see another example. But the attachments here I think are a good blend of related assets like guides, ebooks, a blog post, and then followed by a link to our product pages. And what you should really aim for with your attachment mix is to continue engaging your audience with smart content that they will find useful. So on this slide, we've outlined different types of content you might consider including with your webinar if you're not really sure where to start. Things like blog posts, infographics, guides, those all work really well. In addition to any upcoming webinars or physical events you may be attending, those can add some nice variety. And when you're deciding what to include, you don't want to overload your audience with too many choices. That can kind of get frustrating, and then you're not really strategically guiding them in the direction you want to take them. But when you are deciding what to include, there are 3 questions we typically refer back to. Number 1, does it help your viewers? In other words, is it genuinely useful to your audience? If you're a content marketer, this is probably something you have in mind while producing all of your content anyway, so you should be good there. Number 2, does it guide your prospects further through the funnel? So webinars, of course, give you the opportunity to engage your prospects for a significant portion of time. They're dedicating, up to an hour listening to you talk. So this is when they're at their most attentive, hopefully. And you want to ask yourself if your attachments are providing them with an opportunity to continue learning about your brand and product. And the last question to ask yourself is, are these attachments consistent with the presentation? Not all content blends together. Make sure whatever you're attaching aligns with the topic of the presentation. You know your viewer is interested in that specific topic. That's why they're attending. So just be thoughtful about what other types of content you have that could spark their interest as well. So as I have mentioned, I believe webinar attachments are often overlooked by webinar hosts, so much so that we found that only 14% of presentations on our platform last year included them. But for those that did, there were nearly 50 downloads per session, which represents 50 times your viewers are clicking on and interacting with additional content beyond your webinar. And it really represents a big opportunity if you're a marketer who is running webinars. And then as I mentioned as a last note, we have, of course, attached some content to our webinar. So feel free to check that out. But yeah, this wraps up our section on webinar attachments. So I'm going to hand it back over to Sam, who's going to talk about our next engagement tactic, which is interactivity. Sam.
Great. So interactivity, this is a fun one because people really have a natural desire to assess themselves, to compete with their peers, to compare themselves to their peers. Everyone likes to share their opinion and, of course, win. We're all pretty competitive in nature. And that's what really makes interactive content such a powerful tool to pull people in. And statistics show that buyers engage and convert more when they are provided with that interactive content. I'll share some of the numbers that our friends at SnapApp have published before. They're seeing that marketers get a 42% click rate, 71% content completion rates, and up to 13% lead form conversions when they add interactive content into their mix. So as you can see on the screen here, there's a large variety of interactive formats that you can test and see what works best for your audience, whether it's quizzes, surveys, wizards, personality tests, what's really going to pull them in and get them engaging with your concept that you're going to be promoting. All right. So to get up and running with interactive content, you don't have to start from scratch. I think a lot of time people are a little intimidated with interactive content and, oh, how do I do that, and how do I add that on top of all the other content I'm creating? So you can really focus on using your already created core content pieces and chunk them out into multiple interactive experiences. That way you're offering your audience different ways to engage with your campaign. So for each long-form piece of content that you spend all the time and money investing in, you can likely grab out 10 to 20 smaller interactive content pieces that are usually pretty easy and quick to produce, and you don't really need an agency or IT resource to do so all the time. So some examples would be a knowledge test that you can use the data in a report that you've done, a research report. You can use a poll that asks users to share an opinion that can be then compared to the research. You can also do calculators that helps a prospect assess the value that they could get from a solution that you've articulated in a white paper. There's lots of examples here. The one on screen is from CEB, all about kind of an assessment, are you targeting the right people? And you can see on the side they have their core asset, the customer, the challenge customer. So this is kind of a teaser to that core asset. And all your interactive pieces should tease that core asset. You want to prompt buyers to read that full report or ebook to learn more. And once that buyer is interested in engaging with the interactive piece, they're much more likely to then download that full asset. All right, next is kind of our personal favorite tactic here at PSTL. But in today's digital age, many marketers think that direct mail is on its way out. Everyone's always saying, direct mail's dead, print's dead. But the truth is, direct mail marketing is as effective as ever. And as our inboxes are exploding with email all the time, a personalized direct mail piece can nowadays be just a ticket you need to get your brand and your message to stand out and to really cut through that digital clutter. And the stats around direct mail are surprisingly good as well. So on average, direct mail gets 37 times more responses than other mediums. And research shows that 80 to 90% of direct mail gets opened. And then 64% of those openers or recipients visit a website in reaction to direct mail. So it's really using this offline channel to drive digital action. And then another stat that we would like to see is the end goal. Did someone make a purchase? So 40% of consumers make a purchase after receiving direct mail on average. So that's really good to see. But why, you might be asking? Other than digital overload, it's because direct mail is inherently engaging. We all know that it's more exciting to open a package than an email. You get more excited about getting something in the mail and like, oh, what did I order from Amazon today? Or who sent me something? It's a lot more exciting than digging through emails all day long. So direct mail really helps bring your brand to life, and it stimulates different senses than its digital marketing counterpart, as you can see in some of this neuroscience on the screen here. And that makes the interaction more personable and more memorable. And when you pair that package with a well-timed follow-up email, your odds of engagement with that email go up too. So it's really leveraging both channels together to see the best results. So similar to interactive content, you can take two different approaches when you're using direct mail to promote your content. One option is to send a printed version of your actual core asset. So maybe you turn one of your ebooks into a nicely bound book and mail it to your top accounts or prospects. Or you could trigger the send of a printed case study for someone who didn't click on the email that you sent that featured that case study. A fun way to decide on who should be sent what is to send assets, printed versions of your assets, by listening to someone's behavior on your site. So did they visit your website and were they very interested in a certain topic, but then they left? Maybe that's a good sign that you can continue to engage them with content that they find helpful and relevant to them by sending them a printed version. And then number two, another option is to prompt a digital download of your core asset with a direct mail teaser. And we have customers doing some really fun things, one of which we have here is the viewfinder. So the slides in the Finder intro the content in a really fun way, and that entices leads to go online and learn more and download that core asset. Another fun piece here is this kind of keep the lights on, light up mailer that it doesn't have content specifically in it. There's no book included, but all the language and the theme around the keep the lights on drives people online to download that core asset about what do you need to be doing in your business to make sure you're keeping the lights on in 2017. Everything's so competitive, so this ebook had tips on that. So it's a really good way to get creative and get people excited about engaging with your long-form forms of content. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to you, Taylor, for
Great.
this one.
Thank you. I love that. Direct mail is so fun. So what I'm going to talk about now is third-party content, which is kind of one of my favorites because the great thing about this one is you don't even have to use your own content. So if you follow the 411 rule of social media marketing, you probably already share other brands' content on a pretty regular basis, which is great. But how does that content actually drive prospects back to you? So there's a tool out there called Sniply that we like to use. You can add a personalized call to action button to any page across the web. So this example here on the screen is a third-party blog post from HubSpot with our BrightTalk B down in the lower left-hand corner and a CTA, that blue Go, which is fun. It's pretty valuable because it lets you share that trending third-party content with your brand's logo, messaging, and call to action all included, which can help drive the conversation back to you and really showcase to your audience that, you know, you're not this sales-centric organization only pushing your own content. You really want to be a resource to them as well. And another one of my favorite third-party content tips is to cover a recent survey or study that was conducted by another brand and add your own analysis. This is great, especially if you're short on time or bandwidth, but you want to share good content with your audience. But before I get too far into the topic, I should, of course, mention that all of this comes with the assumption that you're including proper attribution and citing your sources for any third-party content you feature, of course. But the examples I've included here are from co-marketing, who I consider experts at this. They do this pretty frequently. So the idea is to take a recently completed study that's come out in your industry, pull out a few of the top takeaways to share with your audience. You can include statistics or graphs or charts, and then add a little bit of your own analysis as well to put your spin on it. And then when you're sharing that on social, I'd recommend tagging the company that completed the survey in any promotion you do, because that really opens up the opportunity for them to see it and share your post and for you to gain more exposure for your content. And then in a similar vein, our next tactic is content bundling, and that really has some similarities to third-party content, which I'll explain here. So content bundling is a pretty simple concept. All it is taking multiple pieces of content, whether it's your own or it's from one of those said third parties, and packaging them all together to create a new piece of content. So the first example I want to share here is the concept of a content hub. And this slide is an example of a BrightTalk channel from one of our partners at the Content Wrangler. It's one centralized place where they host all of their upcoming live and recorded webinars and videos. And this type of hub is incredibly convenient for your existing audience because it makes it super easy for them to come back to one centralized place and watch and re-engage with your content. But when we looked at our platform data, we also found that bundling content in a channel like this can actually give you more subscribers as well. So if you see that stat on the left, we found that channels with 21 to 50 pieces of content, whether that's webinars or videos, had 180% more subscribers than channels with just 1 to 20 assets, which is great, very encouraging. Another example of content bundling is probably something you see in your inbox pretty frequently, and that is what we consider newsletters or regular digest emails. Those are another great way to repackage up your content. Unfortunately, for us content marketers out there, we realize that most people won't engage with every single blog post or webinar or ebook we publish. So unfair, such a heartbreaker for us content marketers out there, but that's why we're here getting creative with the way we promote and package up our content. So gathering your latest, greatest, most important assets in a format like this will give your subscribers another opportunity to see your content and engage with it. So I've got two examples here. The one on the left is a summit wrap-up email from BrightTalk. If you're not familiar with BrightTalk summits, they are monthly online events where we bring together thought leaders to present webinars based around certain topics. Last month in our marketing community, we did foundational demand generation strategies, so you'll see that there on the left. The email includes links to the on-demand webinars. I believe there were 12. To show our attendees what they may have missed or to give them another chance to watch a presentation they've already seen. And the example on the right is from Marketing Profs. I'm sure many of you received this email from them. It's delightful. They put together this weekly newsletter with all different types of content, they really make it a priority to do a mix of different types. So there we have a podcast, we have a webinar, we have social, we have an infographic, which is great. They're obviously leaders in B2B marketing. Their content is top-notch. But the last example I want to share of content bundling is pretty similar to this newsletter or digest type format, but it's publishing bundled content to your blog instead of through email, or I should say in addition to email. So of course there are a ton of different ways you can go with bundled blog posts, but I'm just going to highlight a couple here. The example on the left is from Kapost, who they do an annual best of list in B2B marketing. And what this equates to is very simply just a list of 50 companies who are out there killing it in B2B marketing, along with just a little snippet of why they made the cut for the list, and some examples which link out to the brand's website. Super simple approach. And again, if you can get some of these companies to share your post, then you'll really be able to increase your exposure, which is great. And the other example I've included here is from our blog on BrightTalk. At the end of each quarter, we take a look at the most popular marketing webinars from the past 3 months, and we feature those on the blog, along with any trends we've noticed with those pieces of content. And these posts are consistently among the most trafficked pages on our blog, so I think our audience enjoys them because, you know, it's always fun to take a look back and remember what you learned or find other webinars that your peers enjoyed that you may have missed. So speaking of fun, I'm going to now hand it back over to Sam to talk about one of our favorite topics as marketers, which is sales enablement. Sam.
Alrighty, so it's sales enablement might be one of our favorites as marketers, but really often it's a tactic that's forgotten, and it really can be one of your strongest tactics. And that's why it's one of our favorites, because it can be so strong for you. You can get much more leverage out of your content if you have your sales team help promote it. More people promoting your content, the better. So it's all about kind of forming that sales army for your content marketing. And it'll help your sales reps too. It'll help them educate their leads better, clarify value props, manage any objections that they might be coming across, and really accelerate those sales cycles. So it's a win-win for sales and marketing. But just like we talked about at the beginning of this webinar, you can't rely on the if you build it, they will come concept. A lot of the time, sales is not using all of the assets that marketing works so hard to create. I saw a quote recently from American Marketing Association that said 90% of marketing deliverables are not used by sales. 90%. That's kind of crazy. And the reason why is 65% of sales reps say they can't find the content that they should be sending to prospects, or they don't know what that content is. So one of the things you can do is make sure that you give your sales teams easy access to your content and really make it as easy as possible for them to share it. So this example here is kind of how we do this at PSTL through what we call the Personal Marketing Center. And this solution lives right inside of Salesforce. That way reps don't have to leave the tool that they spend the most time in anyways. It's just right there where they're doing all of their work in the day. And they can easily find and send our best content, whether it's an email format, direct mail format, or even a social post format. So just with a few clicks, they can share a link and an image on social media promoting this webinar. As you can see here, the second piece of content is just one click away from sharing and promoting this webinar. Or you could send out some of our latest educational books that we have digitally and physically if you would like, depending on the preferences of your buyer or on their past behavior with you. So if they're not responding to an email, it might be a great time just to click a button and send out a direct mail piece and include a little personal note in there for them. So to make it easy for sales teams to find and distribute content, you want to create a central library to house your content. Whether you go with a system like we do here at PSTL or a homegrown system, make sure that you're using folder structure, tagging, labeling, whatever it is that you can organize your content to make it easy for someone to find. And I would recommend organizing it by the journey stage that it's appropriate for, by topic, by industry, and even by personas if you have those established for your business. That just helps sales reps know why that content piece matters, what it aims to do, and who it's right for. Which prospects should they send that piece of content to? Because let's face it, sales reps are really busy. They're not going to read all of the content that you produce front to back. You want to make sure you provide them high-level points that they need to effectively know how to use that content and how to share it. You can also use meetings to figure out what kind of content the sales teams need to help them do their jobs better, and use insights from them to modify or create new content that manages any objections they're coming across or pain points that they're seeing when they're talking to prospects. So set up some frequent meetings with your sales teams. You can use those, like I said, to gather feedback, but to also roll out new content pieces and letting them know that this exists and here's how to use it. And then the third point is employee social sharing. This just gets back to the point of having your sales army in place and making it super easy for them to share on social media. So providing them 3 to 4 pre-written posts that they can share or modify, and make sure you include links, hashtags, any handles you want them to call out, so that they can appropriately do social selling or social marketing without having to be experts at social marketing. All right, so that kind of, we're going to carry on the social theme and talk about online communities. So a huge part of gaining traction with your buyers is going where they go and participating in their conversations, not just asking them to find yours. So sites like Quora and Slack, as shown here, they help you engage with prospects where they're asking questions about your products or challenges, and also just around topics that your business relates to. The example here, if you haven't already joined, if you're interested in ABM or account-based marketing, the Flip My Funnel one is a great channel where people are just going and asking, like, hey, we just started account-based marketing, how do we do this? Or any tips for getting started. So that's a great place to share some content, but then also join those conversations. Other options you can consider are blogs that are related to your industry, maybe LinkedIn groups that are industry or topics related for your business. There's also tech groups out there that you can join, so maybe it's the Marketo community page, maybe it's the Salesforce chatter group. Just really do some research and see what's out there that relates to your business and your topic and your industry, and then go where they are. So go where your buyers are, but then also be transparent. If you're participating in discussions on Quora or Slack, make sure that you have an employee that's responsibly representing your business, and be open about them working for your company. If it's yourself engaging in these conversations or posting on these community forums, just make sure that you're upfront about it and say, hey, I work for PSTL, here are my opinions about direct mail, or here's how we solve that problem. So transparency is really key to influencing in this situation. And then third, make sure that you share your best stuff. You don't want to share every single article you write and just completely bombard people with your content. That's going to be a kind of a red flag for people that, okay, this guy's just trying to sell the crap out of his business, I'm going to tune out. So the best way to go about sharing is to focus first on spending time in the community. Bookmark the site, pin it to your browser, maybe put it on your home screen, and make sure that you're engaging and interacting regularly for a week or two before you even submit your first kind of self-promotional post or answer to a question. Kind of establish yourself as part of the community, contributing to that community before you get to sharing your content. And that ties into number 4, make sure you're doing more than just selling and self-promotion. Don't share only your own stuff, share other articles that can help someone or other opinions and ideas. Make sure that you're commenting and voting on other stories, and it's a give and take thing, so make sure that you're doing that. All right, so the next tip is real-time personalization, which is kind of a mouthful buzzword, but I like to share this example on kind of how I think about real-time personalization. So I, like many of you, I'm in love with Netflix, and not only because I get to shows without commercial breaks, but I really like how easy it is to find new shows to watch. And that's because Netflix has mastered, or at least come close, I think, to mastering the art of learning about user preferences, dislikes, and then serving up content that they're likely going to enjoy. And I'm constantly getting recommendations for new kid movies. I have a toddler at home, and I just love it because there's only so many times you can watch Finding Dory in a week without going insane. So it's really been a lifesaver. And that's what keeps driving me back to Netflix, is just knowing that they understand me. They understand what I like and what I don't. They even listen to, all right, Sam started this movie but then got out within 5 minutes. That's a cue to us that it wasn't right for her. What other shows aren't going to be a good fit for her? They're just constantly listening to any positive and negative behavior that you have with them and then making recommendations. So I saw a stat recently, too, that 75% of users select movies based on Netflix recommendations. So it's working for them. So there's a lot we can learn from Netflix as marketers on how we can kind of create the same experience of serving up relevant content, recommending the right stuff for our audience. And that's what real-time personalization is all about. It's all about providing that better experience for your customer. And consumers recognize that personalization gives them more enjoyable experiences and helps them accomplish their goals. So they're demanding these experiences. So it's not just a nice to have, it's kind of becoming, in this day and age, a need to have. Really providing that good experience to your audience. And it's more about just the good experience. Obviously, if people are having good experiences, that affects their emotions, and we all know that relationships are driven by emotions. So not only will they have a good experience, but they'll be more likely to shop with your brand. If you're B2C, they're going to be more likely to buy your product. Even if you're B2B, they're going to be more likely to engage with you and continue that relationship towards a purchase. Another report I saw from Accenture is that 75% of consumers are more likely to buy from a retailer that recognizes them by name and that recommends options based on their past purchases, or at least knows their purchase history. So using what you know to serve up recommendations or appropriate content is a great thing to do. So getting started, I would recommend that you just really start setting up processes or technology, if you don't already have it, to listen to what your potential audience is doing and what would be a good fit for them for recommending content. So you can get really crazy with RTP to serve up specific calls to action, images, you can change a whole website page to be specific to the person viewing it. You can have specific product offers, but we're really talking about getting more out of your content, so I'm going to focus on using RTP for that. So you can start by listening or looking at demographic data you have on your audience. Maybe you have personas, what industry are they in, where at in their buyer's journey are they with you, maybe what's their location, and using that to then recommend content. RTP is also good if you are doing an account-based marketing approach. It's a great way to serve up content that would be most relevant for that account and kind of the problems or needs that they have, making sure that you're meeting those for the account. And then you can also serve up content recommendations based on a visitor's behavior. So look at what kind of content they're spending the most time viewing. What are their search terms that they've used on their site? What pages are they viewing? Do they have a specific product interest? And then, like on the examples on the previous page, serving up, hey, I know you were interested in red shoes. You might also be interested in these shoes. Or I know you're interested in account-based marketing. Check out these other resources on that topic. Great way to get some more eyeballs and kind of cross-promote your content as well. All right, back to you, Taylor, for the last couple of tactics that we've got.
Perfect. Yes, thank you, Sam. So for the last of our 10 tactics, I wanted to share something that we've pretty recently implemented here at Bright Talk, and something that I've been seeing more and more across the web, and that is website chat. So I'm sure you've all seen the little bubbles in the corner of pages, and you know about all that, but I've highlighted just 4 vendors here: Intercom, Snap Engage, Salesforce Desk, and Freshdesk. But of course, there are a bunch more tools out there if you're interested in adding a chat function to your website. You might be wondering why I'm talking about this, since the most common use case for website chat is probably user support or chatting with sales, but there are also some pretty crafty ways that us as marketers can use it as well. So one of the interesting ways to use this functionality from a marketing point of view is as a targeted content distribution tool. So with these types of chat functions, you can control which pages the chat bubbles appear on, of course, and this lets you display specific chats with targeted pieces of content attached. And that would be useful to your prospects or customers at that specific time, whatever page they're on, or something like that. So this is an example of a chat that we have pop up to customers on our website. I'm not sure that if you can read it, but when they begin the process of uploading a new webinar or video, they'll see a chat like this from our customer success team. And basically what it says is, hey, I see you're uploading a webinar video. Are you interested in understanding more about crafting effective webinar titles and abstracts? And then that includes a link to a guide we've created that's called Crafting Titles and Abstracts that drive webinar registrations. This is one of our most popular pieces of content, and we specifically chose to put it on this page because we knew that our customers who are on this page, maybe they're stuck as they're trying to come up with a webinar title or an abstract that's going to successfully attract their target audience. And one of the things I really like about these type of tools is that the options are kind of endless. And even if you're using it for support purposes or your SDRs are using it, you can also include strategic content in those conversations as well. So you can use it all over your site. And if something's not working or if something's getting stale, they make it really easy to switch out the messages and the content. So that kind of wraps up the last of our 10 ways to drive more engagement. We're now going to quickly run through what we consider our top 5 tips for getting started with these tactics, and then we're going to jump right into our Q&A. So our tips for getting started. I'll start off. Leverage existing content, but only if it's good. That's what this all comes down to. So take a look at your most popular content. Take a look at what's influencing closed deals across all formats, whether it's webinars, videos, blog posts, ebooks. You can apply each of these tactics to each of those pieces of content. So whether it's, chopping up a video into a short teaser or adding a tactile direct mail component, it's really all about simple ways to pull more value out of your best content that you've already worked so hard on. Sam, I'm going to let you take number 2.
All right, number 2. All right, you've got to set aside time for your promotion. So this really ties back to that 80-20 rule. You want to make sure that you make it part of your process and really schedule in promotion time for each of your core content pieces. If maybe that takes dedicating a certain team member or members, or dedicating at least certain amounts of time each week to do that promotion. And it does take time. It's not going to be quick hits really. So make sure that you are setting aside that time because it's absolutely worth it, as we've discussed today. On to 3, Taylor.
3, creating format templates. So as you start to incorporate these tactics into your content production machine, which we hope you will, you'll save yourself a lot of headache and work in the long run by developing repeatable templates that you can use over and over. So for example, with sales enablement, if you create sort of a templated way to share content with your sales team, that'll cut down on the time commitment for you, and it'll also get your sales team accustomed to a certain format, which takes less time for them to think about what you're sending and makes them more likely to actually share it. And the same principle applies for something like content bundling. So if you can build a reusable email template or blog template that lets you slot in new content super easily, you'll be able to push your promotions out faster and really spread your promotions out more. So for number 4, we're going to head back over to Sam.
All right, so one thing that we found internally at PSL that was really useful for us and really holding our feet to the fire for each core asset we create is having a promotion checklist in place. Figure out what are the types and formats of promotion tactics that you want to try or that you know works for you, and feel free to figure out what works best for your business and then make those into a checklist. And that should be an evolving checklist as well. It's not, this is set in stone for each piece. We're going to use only these 5 tactics or these 5 channels. Make sure that you're learning as you're going and measuring success of each format and each tactic so that you can fine-tune and make sure that you have a really efficient checklist. And you don't have to use all the tactics either. Find the mix that works for you. This will just really help you with this checklist, make sure that you're not rushing on to the next content piece and that you're following through with the adequate promotion that that piece needs and deserves. Next one.
Yeah, for this last one, really going off what Sam was just talking about, focusing on the tactics that get the best results. The ideas we shared today are just, an example for getting started. Certain methods may work better for some businesses than others, so highly encourage you to test and measure any new tactics you try so you know what resonates best with your particular audience. And if you have any other tactics that you think we should consider, or maybe we could do a part 2 of this webinar, feel free to share those with us as well. You can include those in the questions tab. And so with that, I think we've wrapped up the meat of our conversation today, and we're ready to move into the Q&A. I know we have just a little less than 10 minutes left, so we will try and squeeze as many of these in as we can. And as I mentioned, please feel free to submit your questions if you haven't already done so. You can do that through the Ask a Question tab beneath your screen. And if we don't get to you today, we will absolutely be sure to reach out afterwards. So I do see quite a few questions coming in. Thank you to everyone who has submitted. Let's dive into these. So, okay, Sam, I think I'm going to pose this first question to you.
Okay.
What is, and this is a good question, what is the best way to measure which promotional tactics are working best?
Great question. I saw there were a couple related to that topic. So I would say first, make sure that you're tracking your content promotion on all the channels and tactics that you're using. If you don't have a measurable way of seeing what's working or what's not, obviously you're not going to get very far. You can look at Google for web activity. You can look at social media networks for stats when you're having your sales team share on social, or if you're doing your own social promotion through your brand. And then if you use a sales enablement tool like we do at PSTL, that way you can see what content and how frequently that content is being used and how frequently those sales reps are sharing it. And then if you have marketing automation, I'd also rely on that to track your success with your content. It's good to have one central hub that pulls in all the results from all the different channels. So a lot of the time you can do that through your marketing automation platform. Even with direct mail, that's one of the things we do here at PSTL is we help tie in direct mail into your digital channels. So you can track it just as you would an email. But I'd really also encourage everyone to step back and look at those main goals that you're trying to drive with your content marketing. Is it more views, which are important? But then also, is it about which promotional tactics and which content pieces are influencing your main goals, whether that's lead acquisition, lead conversion, and ultimately what is driving purchases for you, and then working backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another question here, kind of similar. It asks, what's your approach to measuring what works between the content itself, ways that it's packaged and delivered? And say using those same methods, making sure you're using different, however you're tracking. If you use UTM links, make sure that you use a specific one for each packaged content and the original content. Make sure that's distinguished so you can see how that's resonating with your audience and see if it does make an impact. So yeah, kind of similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Okay, we have another question here. It says, we're a small team and don't create a lot of content yet. Which of these would be best to start with? I'll go ahead and answer this, and Sam, if you have anything to add, feel free.
Sure.
But I would say something along the lines of either the content bundling or third-party content, because that can really bolster the content that you're publishing and creating. And if you have to fill gaps in between, times you're able to actually publish and promote content, you can use those techniques to do that in a helpful and kind of resourceful way. Sam, are there any other methods you would suggest?
Yeah, the other one that comes to mind is even if your department, maybe your marketing department is small, just looking at other areas in your business that you can leverage to help share the content as well. We talked about enabling your sales teams, but depending on what type of business you're in, you can look at other departments as well and help them to get to spread the word out about your content within their own networks. It's kind of that spider web effect. The more people you have sharing up top, the more people will eventually have eyes on it. So that would be my addition.
Great. We've got another question that I'm going to direct over at Sam. So it says, what about syndicated or paid promotion of content? Do you have a recommended balance between paid and unpaid promotion?
Oh, good question. Yeah, we didn't go over a ton of
we didn't.
or syndicated tactics here, but there's definitely really good tactics to consider. I would say one isn't really necessarily better than the other, but they could likely yield different ROIs for you. And so as lead marketers and with small marketing groups, it's great to see unpaid promotion move the needle, but sometimes paid promotion can help move the needle faster. Obviously, you pay for it, so you'd have to balance what works for you as in terms of ROI. So I'd recommend a healthy mix of paid versus unpaid, and really pay attention to what's working and what isn't for your content, and fine-tuning from there. It's okay to experiment. We do all the time here at PSL with different content syndication partners or different channels, and then, like I said, just fine-tuning as we go is the best way that we've seen.
Yeah, and maybe we really do need to do a part 2 to this where we talk about some of that stuff. That would be fun.
Yeah, I mean, you can go on and on about promotional tactics. There really is a lot to choose from. So.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. There's another question here. I think I'll take this one. Sam, again, feel free. What is your view on writing content tied to current news or trends? Is doing so more, less, or equally effective in engaging potential customers? I like that question. So I think you can kind of look at this in a couple ways. I think if you have a big enough team where you're able to produce enough content that you have time to, or you have bandwidth to write about, what's going on right now. If you want to write a blog post about Super Bowl ads or something else timely or topical, that's great, and that's definitely something that grabs attention. Just when I scroll through my Twitter feed or whatever, articles or my inbox, if I see blog articles from B2B companies that are topical, I like looking at those. So those are fun and those are great, I think, if you have the time. I would say the downside to those is, of course, if you don't have time, it's a little bit harder, but also those pieces of content don't have as long of a shelf life. They're not as evergreen as something that's, not tied to a direct news event or trend or topic. So if you can swing it, I say it's great, but just know that it probably won't have as long of a shelf life as some of your other core content.
Yeah, and I can add on too, what we like to do sometimes is work on just having wrappers for your core. We call them wrappers, but basically making just a twist on your promotion language and those tactics to your core asset to fit with whatever that theme is or whatever that current topic is that everybody's buzzing about. So just making sure that the way you frame it up in your tactic, your promotion relates to that topic, and then but isn't still a total disconnect from your core asset. They still need to have some things in common. And then just listening to what the buzz is for your industry is a good thing, I think. So like in our industry, B2B right now, obviously the buzz is a lot about account-based marketing. So if you identify that would be a good thing and your business fits into that, maybe even look at spending a whole year on focusing on that topic and making content and promoting your content in ways that tie into that topic that everybody's crazy about.
Absolutely. I think that's a good note to end on too. I know we're running up against the top of the hour here, so I will say thank you to everyone for attending. I will say thank you to my co-presenter, Sam. I know there are some
Yeah, it was
questions we
fun.
didn't get to, so we will be sure to reach out. There are some questions around sending examples of things we mentioned, so we will definitely do that. And we hope to see you all again on the Bright Talk Academy very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah, have a good day.
Okay, bye.